Well, of course, a biomarker then is information about either an abnormal gene or an abnormal gene product that might be in the tumor, or it might be in the patient's bloodstream. One biomarker is a PSA value, and it indicates there's something wrong in the prostate. It doesn't prove that the patient has cancer, it doesn't prove that the patient needs treatment, but it says there's something going on in the prostate that's abnormal. And in the case we're talking about here in clinical trials, the biomarker will point to a greater probability that if a patient's given a certain drug that is targeting that biomarker's gene, or it's the protein product of the gene, there's greater probability that the patient will respond. So I guess the best example we could give is a phase 1 trial. In the past, phase 1 trials, which are the first time a drug that's been studied in the laboratory is given to a human being, phase 1 trials usually have been designed to check for the lowest dose and then move up in doses until they reach toxicity, and looking at the pharmacology, how the drug is handled in the bloodstream. And it's been very unusual to see responses in phase 1 trials. It's a screening process that's mainly oriented towards safety and the best mode of delivery. And in phase 1 trials today, where those are still the aims when new drugs are introduced, if we preliminarily screen the patients that are put on the trial, and the patients placed in the trial have the biomarker which suggests that the abnormalities present in that patient's tumor for which that drug was designed, we can expect that more patients will respond. And in fact, that's happened here. We have response rates as high as 40% in drugs that are just being introduced into phase 1 trials because we pre-select for patients that are likely to respond. And the other thing is, most drugs don't work against all types of molecular and genetic abnormalities in a tumor. A patient with lung cancer has many possible genetic and molecular abnormalities, and one tumor is different from another. And let's say that 5% have gene number 12 abnormal. Well, a drug that is active against the product of gene number 12 is only going to work in 5% of patients. But if we could screen ahead of time and only study patients that have gene 12 abnormalities, we might expect the drug's going to work in a great number of patients. That will speed up the approval process. It'll get out to the right patients and not be used in the patients where it wouldn't be necessary. So there's just myriads of reasons why biomarkers are useful and important and should be incorporated into trials, in the opinion of the IOM committee that I had the honor to chair. Well, the average cost to an investigator who is carrying out a clinical trial within the practice environment of a university clinic or a private clinic is estimated to be $5,000 or $6,000 per patient. And of course that cost goes up if you have to do a lot of complicated tests on the tumor specimen that involve identifying biomarkers. So it may increase to $10,000 or more a patient. The NCI reimbursement right now per patient in trials is around $2,000. And it means, and this is real time and effort. That $6,000 is paying for the time of the physician who, instead of seeing additional patients, is spending the effort to explain the trial to the patient and check up on all of the data that must be collected, and the nurse that assists in this, and the data managers that assist in this process. And time is money. Today in practice and in the university setting, we are challenged to meet goals in terms of revenues that are generated so that we can pay our bills just like anyone else that's doing an expensive procedure or process. And to take time and effort out to do the research is something all of us want to do, but we think it's fair to be reimbursed for that time and effort. And I just would point out that laboratory researchers in contrast to clinical researchers. Laboratory researchers that are carrying out grants that are funded by and projects funded by the National Cancer Institute are paid for their time and effort as part of the grant much more effectively than clinical researchers who are putting their time into a trial. Well, the CPT code, of course, is the code that determines reimbursement for a procedure. There could be a CPT code for doing a brain cancer surgery. There's a CPT code for taking care of a heart attack, and a CPT code for giving chemotherapy for cancer. And if there was a separate CPT code for an experimental treatment, a clinical trial that you're carrying out, there could be greater reimbursement, but that would take an agreement on the part of the payers that there's value in that, and that the payer is going to benefit in the long run if they don't have to pay for treatments that are given to patients where it's not likely to work, and that patients can be more effectively managed so that they get into remission and hopefully even into cure in shorter periods of time. So I think it's to the advantage of everyone to make this clinical trials process work more efficiently and effectively in shorter time, and to reimburse properly so we can do these trials. And it's just very important to point out, as I think I said, there are over 800 new drugs that are being developed by pharmaceutical company and biotech companies, and most of them, in our opinion, are not going to work on large groups of patients, because there are probably 200 or 300 or even 400 gene abnormalities that might be contributing to cancer. And in any one cancer, there may be 6 or 8 of those gene abnormalities in that cancer, but the other 300 are not there. We've got to be able to personalize treatment and give the right drug to the right patient. And everybody will win if that happens. The payers will win. The patients, of course, are going to win. The drug companies will win because their drugs will get out quicker. And the NCI will achieve its mission. So we hope we can celebrate improvement in the clinical trial system. And we hope that this product of the IOM committee, which put a lot of effort and had tremendous internal support from the IOM, we hope this report helps move this process along.